The war was finally over. After 15 long years of fighting, killing, and dying, the humans had won. Jake Morrison stood in the main hall of the TDF Valiant, a massive spaceship floating above the alien homeworld. He wore his military uniform, medals pinned to his chest. Each medal told a story of blood and sacrifice. But Jake did not feel proud. He felt tired and empty. Around him, hundreds of other soldiers stood in neat rows. They were the survivors, the ones who made it through the war alive. Above them, the ceiling stretched high and wide. Large windows showed the planet below, a world that belonged to the Valorum species. The aliens had lost the war. Now they had to pay. The Treaty of Sol said that the winning soldiers could choose rewards. Technology, land, money, even marriage to alien royalty. Anything they wanted, they could take. It was supposed to make the soldiers feel good about all they had lost. Jake thought it was strange. How could anything replace the friends who died beside him? Admiral Helen Carter walked to the center of the hall. She was a tall woman with gray hair and cold eyes. She had commanded the human fleet throughout the war. Now she stood before the alien leaders who had come to surrender formally. The Valorum royalty looked angry but defeated. They had no choice but to follow the treaty rules. 7 princesses stood in a line. They were daughters of Queen Zareth, the ruler of the Valorum people. 6 of them were tall and impressive. Their exoskeletons gleamed with natural armor. They had been warriors and leaders during the war. Each one looked strong enough to break a human in half. The 7th princess was different. She stood at the end of the line, smaller than her sisters. Her exoskeleton looked dull and cracked in places. She kept her eyes on the floor. While her sisters stood proud despite their defeat, this one seemed to wish she could disappear. Jake noticed her immediately. The admiral called names one by one. Each soldier stepped forward to claim their reward. Some chose technology that would make them rich. Others chose positions of power in the new government that would rule over the defeated worlds. A few chose to marry the strong alien princesses, forming political alliances. Then the admiral called his name. Jake Morrison. Sergeant Jake Morrison, hero of the Battle of Kepler 442b. The soldier who saved the Terran Defense Coalition when everything seemed lost. The man who turned the tide of the entire war. Jake walked forward. His boots echoed on the metal floor. Everyone watched him. They expected him to choose something big. He had earned the right to take almost anything he wanted. The queen herself leaned forward, waiting to hear what this famous human warrior would demand. Jake looked at the 7 princesses. He studied each one carefully. The first princess was a general who had commanded entire fleets. The second princess was a diplomat who had negotiated treaties between alien species. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th were all warriors of great skill. The 6th princess was a scientist who had developed powerful weapons. Then his eyes settled on the 7th princess. She was still looking down, probably expecting to be ignored as always. Her name was Lyra. Jake had done his research. He knew everything about the royal family. He knew that Lyra was considered useless by her own people. Born weak, unable to fight, overlooked and forgotten, Jake raised his hand and pointed, not at the generals or diplomats or warriors. He pointed at Lyra, the weak one, the forgotten one. The room fell silent. Then whispers started spreading like wildfire. The humans looked confused. The aliens looked insulted. Queen Zareth's face twisted with anger and disgust. Not because she valued Lyra, but because she could not understand why anyone would choose her weakest daughter. Admiral Carter stepped closer to Jake. She spoke in a low voice, trying to keep others from hearing. She told him to reconsider. She said he could have so much more. A governorship, advanced technology, one of the powerful sisters. Why would he waste his reward on the useless princess? Jake said nothing. He simply pointed again at Lyra. His choice was final. The queen stood up, her voice sharp with irritation. She offered substitutions. She would give him 2 of her other daughters instead of 1. She would throw in land and technology as well. Anything but Lyra. Not because the queen loved her daughter, but because the choice made no sense and made the royal family look foolish. Jake spoke for the first time. His voice was calm and firm. He said he wanted Princess Lyra, no one else. No substitutions. No additions. Just her. The queen had no choice. The treaty was clear. She waved her hand in disgust and agreed. Lyra would go with the human. The princess finally looked up, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. She had no idea why this strange human had chosen her. She expected cruelty, punishment, or humiliation. That was all she had ever known from those who held power over her. The ceremony ended quickly after that. The other aliens seemed embarrassed by what had happened. The humans were disappointed that their hero had made such a strange choice. But the treaty was law, and the decision was made. Jake and Lyra walked out of the great hall together. They did not speak. Lyra clutched a small bag that held everything she owned. Her family had not said goodbye. They acted as if she had already ceased to exist. To them, she was just an embarrassment being taken away. They boarded a transport ship that would take them to Outpost Meridian, a small station on the edge of human territory. Jake had been assigned quarters there, away from the attention and fame he did not want. As the ship lifted off, Lyra sat by a window and watched her homeworld shrink into the distance. Jake sat across from her, silent and unreadable. He pulled out an old photograph from his jacket pocket. It showed 5 humans in military gear smiling at the camera. They looked young and alive. Lyra noticed that Jake was one of them. She also noticed that his hand trembled slightly as he held the picture. Neither of them knew what the future would bring. Lyra thought she was heading toward some terrible fate. Jake knew he was carrying a debt he could never fully repay. The war was over, but for both of them, the real journey was just beginning. The transport flew through space, leaving the grand ceremony and political games behind. In the cargo hold below them sat Jake's few belongings and Lyra's single bag. 2 people, both survivors, both damaged in different ways, heading toward an unknown future together. The stars outside the window seemed cold and distant, just like the reception they had both received from their own people. But somewhere in the darkness between those stars, something new was about to begin. Something that would change everything. Outpost Meridian was not what Lyra expected. She had imagined a military fortress, cold and threatening. Instead, she found a busy settlement where different species walked together through crowded streets. Humans mixed with aliens who had once been enemies. Traders shouted about their goods. Children of different species played together. It looked almost peaceful. Jake's apartment was small but clean. 2 bedrooms, a common area, and a kitchen. He showed Lyra to her room without much explanation. He told her she could do what she wanted. The door had no lock on her side, only on his. She realized with surprise that she was not a prisoner. The first weeks were strange and tense. Jake barely spoke. He left early each morning and came back late. Lyra stayed in the apartment, afraid to go outside. She did not know what role she was supposed to play. Was she a servant? A hostage? A trophy? Jake never told her, and she was too scared to ask. She noticed things about him. He did not sleep well. Through the thin walls, she heard him wake up shouting in the night. Sometimes she heard him crying. During the day, he was calm and controlled, but the nights revealed his pain. She understood that kind of pain. She had lived with fear and rejection her whole life. After the first week, Lyra tried to eat the food that Jake left for her. Her stomach hurt badly. Valorum biology was different from human biology. Most human food made her sick. She did not complain. She was used to discomfort. She just ate less and tried to hide how weak she felt. Jake noticed. He came home one evening with different food. He had researched what Valorum could safely eat. He had gone to 3 different markets to find the right supplies. He did not make a big deal about it. He just put the food in the kitchen and said it was there if she wanted it. That small kindness confused Lyra more than cruelty would have. She did not know how to respond to someone who cared about her comfort. In her family, she had always been ignored or mocked. This quiet consideration was completely new. Slowly, Lyra began to venture outside. The outpost was full of refugees and former soldiers trying to start over. Many species lived together, but communication was difficult. Arguments broke out constantly over misunderstandings. Different languages, different customs, different ways of seeing the world. One day, Lyra was at the market when a fight started. A human trader was shouting at a Krell merchant. The Krell was shouting back in his own language. Neither understood the other. The human thought the Krell was trying to cheat him. The Krell thought the human was insulting his family. Violence was about to explode. Lyra stepped between them. She spoke to the human in perfect English, then turned and spoke to the Krell in his own language. She explained to each one what the other was actually saying. More importantly, she explained the cultural context. The human gesture that seemed rude was actually a compliment in human culture. The Krell's loud voice was not anger, but emphasis. Within minutes, the situation calmed down. The two merchants realized they had been talking past each other. They apologized and even laughed about the misunderstanding. Other beings who had gathered to watch were amazed. This small, weak alien had stopped a fight with just words and understanding. Jake had been watching from nearby. He saw the whole thing. For the first time, he really looked at Lyra and saw beyond her physical weakness. He saw someone who understood people, who could bridge gaps that seemed impossible to cross. Over the next weeks, more people began seeking Lyra's help. She could speak 7 languages fluently. More than that, she understood the heart of communication. She knew that words were not just sounds but carried feelings, histories and meanings that changed with context. Her years of being invisible had taught her to observe, to listen, to truly see others. The outpost had a refugee processing center where hundreds of displaced beings waited for help. Fights broke out there almost daily. The staff asked if Lyra could volunteer. She agreed. Within a month, the violence dropped dramatically. People stopped seeing each other as enemies when someone helped them understand each other. One night, Jake and Lyra sat together in their apartment for the first time. It had been 3 months since they arrived at the outpost. Jake poured himself a drink and offered Lyra one. She accepted, though she did not drink. She just held the glass, grateful to be included. Jake spoke. He told her about the Battle of Kepler 442b. His voice was rough with emotion. He described how his squad had been trapped in a mining facility that was collapsing. Enemy forces surrounded them. They were out of ammunition and out of hope. Every member of his team was wounded. They prepared to die. Then a young Valorum soldier found them. She was alone, separated from her unit. She had every reason to kill them or call for reinforcements. Her people would have praised her. Instead, she did something impossible. She showed them a hidden maintenance tunnel that led to safety. She created a diversion that drew the enemy away. She saved them. Jake's squad escaped. They completed their mission. That mission turned the tide of the entire war. Humanity won because of what that one alien soldier did. But Jake never forgot. He tried to find out who she was, to thank her, to understand why she saved them. He learned her name. Princess Kira, the 8th daughter of the Valorum royal family. She had been executed for treason. The official report said she helped enemy soldiers escape and refused to follow orders. She was killed by her own people for showing mercy. Lyra's hands began to shake. Kira had been her youngest sister. The family never talked about her. Lyra had been told that Kira died in combat. Now she learned the truth. Her sister had been murdered for doing the right thing. Jake pulled out papers he had kept hidden. He had investigated everything about Kira. He found messages between Kira and Lyra. In those messages, Kira wrote about how Lyra had taught her to think differently. Lyra had told her stories about compassion and honor. She had explained that true strength meant protecting the weak, even if the weak were your enemies. Kira's mercy did not come from nowhere. It came from lessons she learned from her older sister. From Lyra, the one everyone thought was useless and weak. Lyra had planted seeds of compassion that grew into an act that saved lives and changed history. Jake told Lyra why he chose her. He could not save Kira, but he could honor her memory by protecting the person who made her who she was. He chose the weakest princess because he understood that her apparent weakness was actually a different kind of strength. The strength to care, to teach compassion, to see worth in others that the world overlooked. Lyra cried. She cried for the sister she lost, for the truth she never knew, for the years of feeling worthless. But she also cried with relief. For the first time in her life, someone valued her for who she really was. Jake reached across the table and took her hand. He told her that she did not belong to him. She was not his property or his reward. She was his partner if she chose to be. They were both survivors carrying grief they could not share with others. But maybe they could share it with each other. Lyra looked at this human who had lost his whole squad, who suffered nightmares every night, who chose her when he could have had anything. She understood him now. They were the same. Both were trying to honor the dead by living better than the world expected. She squeezed his hand back and agreed. They would work together. Not because a treaty said so, but because they chose it freely. In that moment, a real partnership was born. Two broken people deciding to build something new from the pieces of their shattered worlds. 6 months passed. Outpost Meridian changed under the influence of Jake and Lyra. The violence decreased. People from different worlds learned to work together. Jake handled security matters while Lyra managed the diplomatic ones. They became a team that everyone on the outpost respected, but news from the rest of the galaxy grew darker. The peace treaty was failing. Human governors on occupied alien worlds abused their power. They treated the defeated species like slaves. Some aliens disappeared. Others were beaten for small offenses. The humans in charge saw the aliens as less than people. At the same time, a resistance group called the Reclamation Front was growing stronger. They attacked human settlements. They bombed trade ships. They killed civilians. The front said they were fighting for freedom, but their methods were just more violence. They wanted revenge, not peace. Both sides blamed the other. Both sides prepared for war again. The fragile peace was breaking. Jake and Lyra watched with growing worry. Everything they had built on Meridian would be destroyed if the fighting started again. Then a ship arrived at the outpost. It carried Princess Varesh, Lyra's eldest sister. She was a tall, powerful warrior who had commanded fleets during the war. She walked through the outpost like she owned it. Her guards followed close behind, weapons ready. Varesh demanded to see Lyra alone. Jake did not like it, but Lyra agreed. The two sisters sat in Lyra's room. Varesh looked at her youngest sister with something between contempt and curiosity. She could not understand how this weak creature had become important. Varesh brought a message from their mother. Queen Zareth was dying. Before her death, she wanted to see Lyra, but it was not a loving request. The queen had heard about Lyra's success as a mediator. She had a plan to use that skill. The queen wanted Lyra to spy for the Reclamation Front. She would stay close to humans, gather information, and report back. The queen believed that Lyra's position with Jake gave her access to military secrets. She wanted her useless daughter to finally be useful for something. Varesh delivered the threat clearly. If Lyra refused, the queen would have Jake killed. Assassins were already in place. One word from the queen and the human who saved Lyra would die. Varesh made it clear that she would carry out this order herself if necessary. Lyra felt her world collapse. She had finally found peace, purpose, and someone who valued her. Now her own family was using that against her. She had to choose between betraying Jake or letting him die. While this happened, another ship arrived. Admiral Helen Carter stepped onto the outpost with her own security team. She went straight to Jake. Her face was hard and cold. She had not come as a friend. The Admiral told Jake she had been watching him and Lyra. She saw how they worked together, how they built cooperation between species. She did not like it. Carter led a group of humans who wanted to keep the aliens under control forever. They believed humans were superior and should rule the galaxy. Carter saw Jake and Lyra as dangerous. Their success proved that humans and aliens could live together as equals. That idea threatened everything her faction stood for. She offered Jake a deal. Take a promotion, command a military district, and send Lyra back to her people. If he did this, he would have wealth and power. But if he refused, Carter would charge both of them with treason. She would claim Jake was sharing military secrets with an enemy alien. She would claim Lyra was a spy. Both would be arrested, tried, and probably executed. Carter had the power to make it happen. She had supporters throughout the military and government. Jake asked for time to think. Carter gave him one day. Then she expected his answer. She left confident that Jake would make the smart choice. He was just one man. He could not fight the entire human power structure. That night, Jake and Lyra sat together in their apartment. Both were silent for a long time. Finally, Lyra spoke. She told Jake about Varesh's visit and the Queen's threat. She said she would go back to her people. She would spy for them if it meant keeping Jake alive. He had saved her. Now she could save him. Jake shook his head. He told her about Carter's offer and threat. He said he would send Lyra away and take the promotion if it meant keeping her safe. She deserved to live even if it meant they could never see each other again. They both realized what was happening. Each was willing to sacrifice themselves for the other. Both their peoples were trying to force them to betray their friendship. It was a test, and not just of their loyalty to each other. Jake thought about his squad, the ones who died in the war. They had not died so humanity could become oppressors. They died believing they were fighting for something better. If he gave in to Carter now, their deaths would mean nothing. Lyra thought about Kira, her sister who died for showing mercy. Kira had risked everything to do what was right. If Lyra became a spy now, if she helped start another war, she would dishonor everything Kira died for. They made their decision. They would refuse both offers. They would not betray each other, and they would not betray their principles. Instead, they would fight back the only way they could. They would tell the truth. Jake recorded a message. He told the story of Kira, of how an enemy soldier saved his life and the lives of his squad. He explained that their victory came because of mercy, not just strength. He said that true peace required treating former enemies as people, not property. He sent this message to every human news network. Lyra recorded her own message in the Valorum language. She spoke about her sister who died for doing right. She challenged her people to honor Kira by choosing peace. She exposed the Queen's manipulation and the Reclamation Front's true nature. They were not freedom fighters. They were just more people using anger to grab power. She sent this to every Valorum communication channel. The messages went viral across both civilizations. Billions of people watched and listened. Some called Jake and Lyra traitors, but many more called them heroes. People were tired of war. They were tired of leaders who cared more about power than peace. These messages gave them hope. Admiral Carter was furious. She ordered her troops to arrest Jake and Lyra immediately. But when the soldiers arrived at Meridian, they found something unexpected. The residents of the outpost, humans and aliens together, formed a protective circle around Jake and Lyra's home. Hundreds of people stood shoulder to shoulder. A human veteran spoke up. He said he had not fought a war so that heroes could be arrested for telling the truth. A Valorum trader agreed. She said she had not survived the war just to watch it start again. One by one, people from different worlds declared they would not let Jake and Lyra be taken. Varesh watched this happening. She had come to take Lyra back by force if necessary, but seeing all these different beings standing together, willing to risk everything for her weakest sister, something changed inside her. She thought about Kira and the truth Lyra had revealed. She thought about what honor really meant. Varesh made a choice. She ordered her guards to stand down. Then she did something that shocked everyone. She stood with the crowd protecting Jake and Lyra. A Valorum princess, one of the most powerful warriors of her people, refused to follow the Queen's orders. She defected. The situation became a standoff. Admiral Carter had warships in orbit. The Reclamation Front was sending forces too. Both sides wanted to capture or kill Jake and Lyra, but now hundreds of people stood in the way. If Carter ordered an attack, she would have to kill civilians from both species. The whole galaxy was watching. Outpost Meridian, a small, forgotten station on the edge of space, had become the center of everything. The future of galactic peace balanced on what happened next. Jake and Lyra stood together at the center of the crowd, knowing they had started something that could not be stopped. For better or worse, the galaxy would have to choose what kind of future it wanted. The standoff lasted 3 days. Admiral Carter's warships orbited above Outpost Meridian, while Reclamation Front vessels approached from the outer system. Both fleets prepared for battle. The people protecting Jake and Lyra never moved from their positions. They brought food and blankets. They slept in shifts. They refused to leave. Then something unexpected began to happen. Other ships started arriving. Not military fleets, but individual vessels. Traders, refugees, former soldiers. These were people that Jake and Lyra had helped during their time at Meridian. They came from across the sector to support them. A human cargo captain told the story of how Lyra had negotiated a contract for him when he was about to lose everything. A Valorum family explained how Jake had protected them from thieves who wanted to hurt them. A Krell engineer described how both of them had helped him find work when no one else would hire him. Person after person shared stories of kindness and help. But the real change came from within the military forces themselves. Princess Varesh used her connections to contact Valorum officers she had served with during the war. She told them the truth about Kira's death and sacrifice. Many of these officers had known Kira. They had been disgusted when she was executed, but too afraid to speak up. Now they learned that Kira had saved human lives, and those humans went on to win the war. They learned that her compassion came from Lyra's teachings. They realized that the weakest princess had more honor than the powerful ones. Ship by ship, Valorum commanders refused their orders to attack Meridian. Some even joined the defenders. On the human side, a similar rebellion was growing. Veterans who had served under Jake started questioning their orders. They remembered him as a hero who saved their lives multiple times. Now they were being ordered to arrest him for treason. It made no sense. They talked to their crews. They shared Jake's message about Kira. One ship refused to follow orders. Then another. Then 5 more. Some vessels actually left Admiral Carter's fleet and joined the growing number of ships protecting Meridian. Carter found herself facing a mutiny. Her carefully planned operation was falling apart. The Reclamation Front faced similar problems. Their rank-and-file members were tired of fighting. They had joined the front because they wanted freedom and justice, not more bloodshed. When they learned that their leaders planned to kill Lyra for speaking the truth, many began to question what they were really fighting for. Public opinion across the galaxy shifted dramatically. The broadcast of Jake and Lyra had reached billions of people. For the first time, ordinary citizens on both sides were talking to each other instead of just listening to their leaders. They realized they had more in common with each other than with the politicians and generals who wanted war. Jake and Lyra watched all this happening from Meridian. They had not expected such a response. They had only wanted to tell the truth. Now that truth was sparking a movement that neither side could control. On the 5th day of the standoff, Jake proposed an idea. He and Lyra would surrender themselves to a neutral third party, not to the military forces or the Reclamation Front, but to representatives of the regular people. They would become hostages to ensure good faith while both sides organized a real peace summit. But this would not be like the old Treaty of Sol. That treaty had been written by victors and forced on the defeated. This new summit would be different. Both sides would send regular people who had lost loved ones in the war. Veterans, widows, orphans, medics. Not politicians or generals, but those who actually paid the price of conflict. The proposal spread quickly. Moderate voices on both sides seized on it. They were tired of the hardliners who wanted endless war. Admiral Carter tried to dismiss the idea, but she no longer had the support. The Reclamation Front leaders also opposed it, but their followers started demanding they accept. Within a week, the summit was organized. Representatives from dozens of worlds traveled to Meridian. They came with stories of loss and suffering. They came hoping for something better than what their leaders had given them. The summit took place in the main meeting hall of Meridian. No weapons were allowed inside. No military uniforms. People sat in circles facing each other. For the first time, they were equals. Jake and Lyra facilitated the conversations, but mostly let people speak. A human woman stood up. Her name was Beth. She told how she lost her 2 children in a Zintharian raid on her colony. For years, she had hated all aliens with burning passion. She had wanted revenge. She had wanted them all dead. Then she came to Meridian as a refugee. She met an elderly Valorum woman who had also lost children. This woman's family had died when humans bombed their city. The 2 women shared their grief. They cried together. They realized their losses were the same. The alien was not a monster. She was just another mother who had lost everything. Beth said she still mourned her children every day. But she no longer wanted revenge. She wanted to make sure no other mother, human or alien, had to feel this pain. Her testimony brought tears to many eyes. A Valorum soldier spoke next. His name was Crix. He explained that he had been forced to fight. His family would have been killed if he refused. He had not wanted to hurt anyone, but he had no choice. During the final battles, he received orders to execute human prisoners. He refused. He was punished severely but survived. Crix revealed that he knew Princess Kira. They had been in the same unit for a time. She had been doing more than just helping Jake's squad escape. For months, she had been sabotaging war crimes. She found ways to warn civilian populations before attacks. She secretly released prisoners. She did everything she could to reduce unnecessary death. When her activities were discovered, the military leaders wanted to execute her quietly, but Queen Zareth insisted on a public trial. She wanted to make an example of her daughter. She wanted to show that mercy was weakness. Crix's testimony painted a picture of systematic cruelty from the Valorum leadership. More stories came out. Human veterans admitted to atrocities they were ordered to commit. Alien soldiers described being forced to fight against their will. Civilians from both sides shared experiences of corruption and abuse by their own leaders. A pattern emerged. The war had not been about survival or ideology. It had been about power and profit for a small group of leaders on both sides. The summit lasted for 10 days. News coverage spread the testimonies across the galaxy. People who had never questioned their government started asking hard questions. Who actually benefited from the war? Who wanted it to continue? Admiral Carter was recalled to Earth. Her superiors wanted answers about her actions. The Reclamation Front started breaking apart. Members realized they had become the same kind of oppressors they claimed to fight against. Both organizations lost public support rapidly. The summit did not solve everything. There were still deep wounds and difficult questions. But it created something real, a foundation of understanding. People from both sides who had talked, listened, and found common ground. They formed the core of a genuine peace movement. Jake and Lyra were exhausted but hopeful. They had proven that change was possible. One honest conversation at a time, one act of courage at a time, one person choosing peace over revenge at a time. On the final night of the summit, a message arrived for Lyra. It came from Valorum Prime. Queen Zareth had died 2 days earlier. Her final words had been recorded and sent to her surviving daughters. But the message for Lyra was different from the others. The dying queen had included coordinates to a hidden location. She claimed it contained information about the war's true origins, information so important that it could change everything. The message ended with a cryptic warning. The queen said that Lyra would finally understand why she had always been hated. Jake looked at the coordinates. They led deep into Valorum territory, to a place that should have been abandoned years ago. It was obviously a trap, but if there was really information about the war's origins, they had to investigate. The peace they were building needed truth as its foundation. Lyra agreed, though she was afraid. Her mother had never done anything out of love. This final message was another manipulation, but they had come too far to turn back now. Whatever secrets the queen had kept, they needed to be revealed. Princess Varesh volunteered to come with them. She said she owed it to Kira's memory to see this through. A small team was formed, humans and Valorum together, veterans of both sides working as one unit. They would go to the coordinates and discover what the dead queen wanted them to find. Admiral Carter was arrested along with dozens of other human conspirators. On the Valorum side, aristocrats who had participated in the scheme were taken into custody. Trials began. The process was public and transparent. Both civilizations watched as their corrupt leaders faced consequences. New leadership emerged on both sides. These new leaders had lived through the war as ordinary people. They understood the cost of conflict. They were committed to building real peace, not the false treaty that benefited only the powerful. A new treaty was negotiated. This time, regular citizens helped write it. The document included provisions for cultural exchange, mixed settlements, and a joint peacekeeping force. Most importantly, it established truth and reconciliation commissions to help both societies heal from the trauma of war. The treaty was named the Covenant of Kira and Varesh. Both sisters were honored as heroes who gave their lives for peace. Statues were erected, schools were named after them, and their story became required teaching for all children on both sides. Jake was offered his old military rank and a position of high authority. He declined. He had no interest in power or fame. He chose to stay at Meridian with Lyra. They had important work to do. Together they established an academy. It trained mediators, peacekeepers, and diplomats from both species. Students learned not just languages and customs, but the deeper skills of understanding and empathy. The first graduating class numbered 200. Within 5 years, graduates worked throughout both civilizations. Outpost Meridian grew into a thriving city. It became a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Mixed neighborhoods developed where humans and Valorum lived as neighbors. Children of different species played together. The old divisions faded as new connections formed. Jake and Lyra created a memorial garden in the center of the city. It honored all those lost in the war, regardless of which side they fought on. 2 names were carved largest on the memorial stone, Princess Kira and Princess Varesh. Fresh flowers appeared there every day, left by people who never knew the sisters but understood what they represented. One evening, Jake and Lyra sat by the memorial as the sun set. 5 years had passed since the ceremony where Jake made his choice. Lyra asked him if he ever regretted choosing her instead of wealth or power, or one of her impressive sisters. Jake smiled. He admitted that when he first pointed to her, he thought he was repaying a debt. Kira saved him so he would save her teacher, but he had been wrong about his own motives. Choosing Lyra was not about owing anyone anything. It was about recognizing real strength when the whole world called it weakness. He said that Lyra taught him something important. True strength is not about surviving battles or winning wars. It is about having the courage to build something beautiful after the fighting stops. It is about choosing compassion when hatred would be easier. It is about seeing value where others see none. Lyra took his hand. She said she had learned from him too. She learned that being saved is not about being weak. Sometimes accepting help is an act of courage. Sometimes letting others see your vulnerability creates strength instead of destroying it. They sat together in comfortable silence. They were partners in every sense that mattered. Not romantic lovers, but something deeper. Two souls bound by shared purpose and mutual respect. Two people who proved that the strongest bonds are forged not through victory in war, but through courage and peace. Years continued to pass. The academy grew. More mixed communities developed. A whole generation grew up knowing former enemies as friends, neighbors, and family. The old hatreds became history that children learned about but did not feel. Jake and Lyra became legends, though they never sought fame. People told stories about the human soldier who chose the weakest princess, and the princess who proved that weakness was just strength in a different form. But the two of them remained humble, continuing their work day by day. The final scene takes place 10 years after Jake's choice. A new class of students arrives at the academy. They come from all over the galaxy, representing dozens of species. They are young and hopeful, ready to learn how to build bridges between different worlds. Jake and Lyra stand together to greet them. They are older now, with gray in their hair, but their eyes still shine with purpose. They welcome the students and tell them about Kira and Varesh. They explain that peace is not a destination but a constant choice. Every day, in every interaction, people choose either to divide or to unite. After the orientation, Jake and Lyra walk back to the memorial garden. Someone has left new flowers again. They stand before the names of the fallen sisters and make a silent promise to keep honoring their memory through action. The camera pulls back to show the entire city of Meridian. Humans and Valorum walk together through busy streets. Children play in parks. Traders from different worlds bargain peacefully. The city thrives as a living monument to what cooperation can achieve. The reason Jake chose the weakest princess was simple, but profound. He understood that physical weakness often masks the greatest moral strength. He recognized that the ones society overlooks are sometimes the exact ones who can change the world. He saw what everyone else missed. That true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the courage to build, not in the strength to conquer, but in the wisdom to understand, not in winning wars, but in creating peace that lasts. And in choosing Lyra, Jake did not save her. They saved each other. Together they saved countless others. They proved that change begins not with grand gestures or mighty armies, but with two people choosing to see each other's worth when the world says they have none. That was the real surprise. That was the truth worth discovering.